On Sunday night, Trump appeared to shift course on releasing the Epstein files. So, here to help us make sense of these head spinning pivots and the rest of the week's major political developments is our political panel. Up first, we have Washington, D.C. correspondent Dave Leventhal and Laura Jadid, a reporter whose beat includes far-right political movement in America and housing inequality, and Egberto, Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right. So hello and welcome to everyone.
Hey, Jenna.
It's an honor to be with you all.
All right. And wonderful cacophony of voices. So Dave, let's start with you. And how much do you believe, first of all, what is your take on this pivot? Because again, from what I understand about Trumpism, never apologize, never back down are two of its foundational tenets, but yet we're seeing this pivot.
Well, you kind of got half that right. Donald Trump he has not apologized. He has done nothing of the sort. He's not said he's sorry. He's not said that he has any regrets for having the positions that he had in some cases just a couple of days ago. And when it comes to the Epstein files, let's not forget here, this has literally been months and months upon months of Donald Trump trying to block the release of the Epstein files or Congress doing anything that would be tantamount to the release of the Epstein files that they would be mandating. And he's effectively flipped 180. But anyone who should be surprised by that is just simply not paying attention to the way that Donald Trump operates. If it is convenient for Donald Trump, if it is something that could potentially benefit Donald Trump, then Donald Trump is likely going to do this. This is just the way that he works. And why is he doing it? I think the question really has a fairly obvious answer, which is that if you can't beat him, you got to join him. And Donald Trump knew that he was going to lose this fight. There were so many Republicans who were either telegraphing or otherwise saying just straight up and outright that they were willing in the U.S. House to vote for the release of the Epstein files. Now, of course, it would have to go through the Senate as well, and there's no guarantees there, as we all know. But just the notion that Donald Trump would have something on his desk that he would have to sign to release the Epstein files that was passed by the House, passed by the Senate, with Republicans defying him, would have put him in an untenable position, at least as far as he is concerned. So this is something that kind of, he's hoping will inoculate himself against that, but that remains to be seen. And I would just add too that if Donald Trump wanted to order the Department of Justice to just simply release these files, he has that right and he has that ability, and very little has stopped him from doing other types of strong executive measures of that sort. So keep that in mind too as we have this discussion about releasing the files.
Of course. Now, Laura, I want to turn to you, though, and say that nothing in the Trump administration happens without drama. And so while we're seeing this pivot, we're also seeing a very surprising, for lack of a better description, breakup between the president and one of his staunchest supporters in Congress, Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, it's been quite the thing to behold. I was having a conversation with a friend a couple of days ago about this. She really is a true believer. It's strange. Not a lot of them are, I think, but she does seem to really believe the wild things that she believes. And as Trump has broken with that, rather than change her opinions to match his day to day, I think she's actually taken a stand. And I think it's good to keep two things in mind, which is one, that she's making some very good points on Epstein and has also had some very powerful words about the polarization and the violence that can inspire and how bad it feels when that is turned on you. Also, let's keep in mind that in no way has she walked back any of her positions. She told Dana Bash that she should have Nick Fuentes on her show. I'm seeing a lot of talk about, can we work with Marjorie Taylor Greene? And the answer is no. No, of course not. She doesn't want to work with us. We don't want to work with her. Love to see the breakup, but let's not be confused about what the rebound is going to look like.
Okay. How this is playing out largely throughout the country. We saw after the Democratic wins, a handful of senators vote with Republicans to reopen the government. And so, Egberto, I wanted to get your take on what are some of the blowbacks, perhaps, that people are still experiencing. We know that flights are supposed to go back to normal today, and so that's great if you're flying domestically. But in addition to, as I mentioned in the intro, the reapplying for food stamps, there's some other ripple effects from all of this.
Yeah. First of all, it turns out that the store owner who lost all those sales during the none of that is going to come back. So people can't expect that things are going to get back to normal frequently. But I think one of the most important things that people are going to feel is what did we do this for? Right. I think they're going to say, okay, so I missed all the payments. The government workers are going to be paid. But for those who weren't government workers, whatever they lost from having the lack of government workers, that's not going to be, there'll be no comeback from that. If I'm able to kind of piggyback on something that before, when we talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, she shouldn't be trusted at all. Of course not. But I did a piece yesterday where I said that I think let's leave it up to her. Let's see if she's going to support things like basic income. Let's see if she'll support things like family leave. Let's see if she's really going to make a change, and then we can decide whether her words mean anything.
Well, I think that definitely remains to be seen, and a lot of people are definitely looking to see what happens there. David, going back to you. Given what we've discussed, the breakup with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and of course the impacts, the ripple effects from the 40-day long shutdown, how do you see the president's poll numbers perhaps influencing any of his behavior? Because before he seemed to behave in a manner that seemed as if he was Teflon to them, but are aides maybe starting to get in his ear like, Mr. President, we need to maybe give on something here?
Donald Trump's poll numbers are bad. They're pretty terrible by any standard measure of poll numbers. But Donald Trump doesn't care about that so much, so long as he is polling well with the people who he has always polled well with. The thing to pay attention to, Jenna, is whether the poll numbers for the very specific demographic of dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore Donald Trump MAGA supporters, is it all moving? And we're going to get the answer to that pretty quickly over the next couple of weeks here to see if there has been some erosion in that support. And if the general public, the general MAGA public, if you will, is in essence going the way of Marjorie Taylor Greene and saying, well, we're very MAGA. We love everything that Donald Trump has talked about and stood for years now, but we're not really loving what we're seeing from Donald Trump. Now, a skeptic would say, and I think we should be pretty skeptical, that's going to be pretty difficult to have happen. But even if it's around the margins, that is something that is notable, and it's something that could potentially have an effect going into, obviously, what we have next year, which are the 2026 midterm elections, where other Republicans are going to begin to feel pressure and feel heat from people who are not entirely happy with the way things are going. And to not make everything about the Epstein files, but this has been a major point of contention. And if there's going to be a schism of any sort, it likely is going to be around that. So pay attention to that as well.
Well, Laura, speaking of all of that, especially when it comes to the true dyed-in-the-wool MAGA supporters, when it comes to the poll numbers, are we seeing any shifts or perhaps loosening of the grip? And I'm thinking specifically with Latino voters who supported the president and also evangelical voters who supported the president.
I'm everything Dave said. I would agree with. His poll numbers are really strikingly bad. It does seem like he's losing Latino support. I haven't seen anything that indicates he's losing evangelical support, but it wouldn't entirely surprise me. I think more than that, though, we're just seeing a lot of cracks in this kind of invincible, this one person who was holding all of these very disparate groups together. That's crumbling pretty badly right now. I mean, it's not just the Epstein files. It's the redistricting fight that Trump is currently losing. He wanted the filibuster nuked. They wouldn't do it. There is the ongoing fallout of Tucker Carlson having Nick Fuentes on his show and the Heritage Foundation splitting over that. There's just a lot of schisms right now. Last week, Trump had a somewhat hostile interview with Laura Ingraham about various things. And at one point, she got a little bit aggro with him about H-1B visas and foreign students, and feels like he's not being very MAGA on those two things. He's being a little too easy on those groups, which, again, these are attacks from the right, which is interesting. And I do want to just come back once to the things about Marjorie Taylor Greene and all of this. Like, as this schism happens, we will be seeing people advocating for things like basic income, family leave, and people, this isn't isn't going to make me any friends. This makes people very mad. But half of National Socialism is socialism. I don't mean actual socialism. I don't mean it works that way when it takes over, but I mean rhetorically speaking, populist rhetoric. There's plenty of room for things like basic income, family leave, social safety net stuff. That stuff that
affordable healthcare. She's talked about that a lot.
Exactly. Affordable healthcare. This is completely compatible with Christian nationalism. And this is like, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's fortunate in some ways because nobody should have to know who Nick Fuentes is. But I really wish people knew a little bit more about why his name is such a giant red flag. This is a Nazi. He would not perhaps describe himself as that, but he has frequently expressed his love for Adolf Hitler. He is the person behind Kanye West's little crash out about Hitler a few years ago. This is a bad person. Anybody that goes on a show and says you should have Nick Fuentes on your show, that is not a reformed person and is not anyone I personally want anything to do with.
Okay. Egberto, before I pivot to your question, I just wanted to get your take on, I guess, this fallout, and especially from the point of view from Texas, if there seem to be cracks in the MAGA base.
Oh, definitely cracks in the MAGA base. I mean, I can actually see it. I talk to a lot of people. I get a lot of calls on my program, and there are a lot of people who now want to know what's really happening because a lot of folks are starting to feel snowed. But the one thing about it is Donald Trump knows how to pull victories out of failure, victories out of losses. And the reason he gets away with it, it's because there are not enough of us that have enough of a large platform to point it out as the mainstream media appeases him. We spoke about his poll numbers a few statements earlier. His poll numbers have never been good, ever. Donald Trump never had the clout that he for which he's given by the mainstream media. This is a created figure of being a wealthy man that wasn't wealthy until he got to the presidency and was able to steal wealth with the things that he does. So I mean, our system just have that manner of deciding who they will anoint. If I may say something real quick. I would like folks to see what a leader looks like. There is a documentary on TV now called Prime Minister, and it documents Jacinda Ardern's path to the Prime Ministry of New Zealand. When you watch that, you see what we should hope for. First of all, I think women in the last few decades have made much better leaders, and when you see what she had to go through, you can understand why.
Okay. All right. And I believe that is we don't need to name the network's name, but it is a legacy network and you can probably find it streaming, etc. But also, Egberto, I wanted to ask you because news just broke that China is expanding its desert nuclear testing site. And with, of course, President Trump announcing earlier this month that for the first time since 1991, the U.S. would resume testing nuclear weapons. What are you making of all of this?
First of all, Trump always, without knowing, always create international. He always gives people the necessary permission to do things. China has signed a non-proliferation treaty as well. But here's the thing. If he goes out and he says, we are going to start doing this, of course, China is going to say the same. And yes, the satellites have already picked up boreholes in some of China's deserts where they've actually have boreholes that one could test nuclear weapons. So yes, he's he's given China permission to test things we hope they wouldn't have tested. With the boats in the middle of the ocean that he's blowing up, he's given other people permission to say, well, you're sending arms to our country. We are going to do the same things. He is opening the doors for a whole lot of things, from a minor Cold War right back to other countries legally terrorizing us.
All right. Well, stay tuned, as the president loves to say. Since we're coming to the end of our time together, I do want to find out from our guests what is on your radar for this coming week. It seems like all the things are up in the air, but Dave, I'll start with you. What are you going to be watching?
What will be the latest distraction? So Donald Trump is in a bad period right now. He has done 180s. He is pivoting. Tariffs have not gone the way that he wants them to. We have said chapter and verse about the Epstein files. So is it going to be Venezuela? Is it going to be nuclear testing or something of that sort, of an international sort. I should note, too, that Donald Trump has not said that there will be mushroom clouds here in the United States or underground nuclear tests. So it's exactly unclear still what he means by nuclear testing. But the point here is that Donald Trump always likes to bring something out of the ether or from left field and make it headline news. I would be shocked if that didn't happen this week in the midst of everything else that is going on in the White House and in his political world.
All right. Laura, same question to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Trump is in really bad trouble. I think it will be very interesting to see what happens next with that. I'm going to phrase it slightly different way. I'm going to be watching for more cracks. I'm very interested in who is going to decide that this is the time to come for the king just a little bit, even just a little bit, because it seems like that's happening more and more.
From
and
within the party. I just want to be clear. Are we talking from within the party or outside?
From within, yeah. I mean, I think I felt like we're seeing it a little bit with Marjorie Taylor Greene, with that Laura Ingraham interview, with redistricting, all this stuff. We're seeing these cracks, and I'm just interested to see if there's going to be more cracks this week. I feel like there might be.
Laura,
yeah. Egberto, what were you going to say?
I was going to say Laura took one out of the two that I did when it came to the part about. My answer was going to be who will be the next MTG. And I wonder who it's going to be. But secondly, and for me, especially because of the part of the world that I'm from, what's really going down with Venezuela? I don't think it necessarily, based on the amount of equipment that they have down there, I don't think it's a real invasion. I think it's an intimidation to coerce, not necessarily get rid of Maduro, but to coerce some business deals for some oil companies.
Something Laura said that actually also sparked my interest, which also I'm seeing this conversation starting to bubble up. And that is, if there are cracks in the MAGA base, and if someone does successfully, maybe not take out, but wound the king, in air quotes here, how do each one of you see what seems to be the jockeying of people attempting to cue themselves up as the next leader of the party? Because the GOP is kind of in a place where it's a cult of personality. And if that personality is no longer leading, who's got next, for lack of a better description? And Dave, I'd love to get your take on that.
Well, first of all, I don't want to count Donald Trump out for a second here. He's going through a very rough patch. He's going through some difficult times. But Donald Trump, if he is one thing, he has been the ultimate political survivor, somebody who has come back and is president of the United States after myriad things that would have otherwise derailed just about any other politician, whether that be January 6th or the assassination attempts on his life. And, remember those 91 different felony counts against him, 34 of which he was convicted on. And by the way, still some action down in Georgia to pay attention to, is that case, which is still alive, is actually moving forward, although to what extent we don't know. So Donald Trump has the ultimate way of really coming back from difficult times, and that's that he's going to be on that trail. So it's going to be very perilous if anyone does, in fact, try to go at the king even a little bit, because Donald Trump still has an incredible amount of support among his base.
Laura, do you agree?
I do. Absolutely. No, I've made that mistake a couple times, once really. And it was it was very embarrassing. I had to walk it back and, anyway, and I agree. Trump is a survivor, and it's crazy what he can do. If I had to pick someone though, and I don't think this is the person who would go for him, but I think it's JD Vance. And I understand he's a charisma black hole. I understand that he's not an appealing person, that he's not good at campaigning, but I'm not sure they need to be good at campaigning at this point. They've got a pretty good toehold, and they have their own secret police at this point. And they're very well funded. Also, JD Vance has the backing of the tech billionaires and the alt-right. And if, those are the tech billionaires, that's infinite money. The alt-right, listen, they're kind of having a bit of a comeback right now. And he also cleans up well, and he has absolutely no morals whatsoever. That there's nothing behind the eyes. He doesn't care. He'll do whatever he has to get power. And if I was betting on after Trump, my money's on Vance.
All right. And Egberto, same question.
Look, I'm gonna agree with a caveat. The idea that Donald Trump is invincible, I don't agree with. I think Donald Trump is needed right now. He is who Peter Thiel needs right now. Peter Thiel is the one who lined up JD Vance to be where he's at right now. I think when Donald Trump loses his usefulness, they'll then let him go. Right now, as Dave said, he's still useful because remember, Donald Trump doesn't know much. He's just performative. and it's useful and it's working right now. Whenever that real crack occurs, and whenever the media, the mainstream media, agrees that the crack occurs, then things will change. And I think JD Vance will be right there and ready with the backing of all the billionaires, specifically Peter Thiel. And, I think that's where we're at. But I also think that is where we defeat them. So I think they have much less power than they believe.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but what a note to leave it on. Many thanks to my panel, Washington, D.C. correspondent Dave Leventhal, reporter Laura Jadid, and Egberto Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right.
All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.